For many, many years, people have been mixing using this, the TubeTech CL1B. This is, I've used this far too many times recently, an industry standard. Jason Joshua told us that when he was working at Larrabee, doesn't matter who the mixer was, it doesn't matter what the genre was, this was the compressor they used on the vocal. So, Warm have come out and they've made their version of this classic compressor, and it's about a quarter of the price. So what we're going to do today is put it through its paces, record some vocals with it, and mix some different vocals and see just how close we can get it. And is that 1/4 of the price an absolute bargain or not? Let's find out.
We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose, and it's because we were purchased. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose. Say we didn't deserve it. Yes, he did. Whoa. Say we didn't deserve it. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Yeah. Now I'm walking in purpose.
So I just did one take here, getting fairly decent similar results. I feel like the CL1B is grabbing a little harder. It's just a little bit more compressed. So I'm actually going to increase the compression on the 1B, the WA-1B, to see if we can match it. This is fun.
We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose. And it's because we were purchased. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. Now I'm walking in purpose. Say we didn't deserve it. No, no. But he saw we were worth it. Yes, he did. Whoa.
Cut you off in your prime. Okay, that's great. We're getting pretty similar results here. This is good. So we just recorded that with the fixed setting on the attack and release. We're going to do some more vocals in a second, but we're going to go straight over to the manual setting. We're going to have the release time set to its fastest and then the attack pull back a little bit on the speed so it doesn't grab it too hard. At least that's what we'll start with and see where we get. At the moment, it seems like the calibration is slightly off because the TubeTech one is slightly forward on the meter. So it looked like I was getting slightly more compression on the Warm, but now I come to think about it, it was literally just the difference between the meters. So that's the one thing. But the only other thing to note is that we are hitting, at least we're coming in on the gain on the TubeTech. This is malted from the mic out of the mic pre to both of these compressors. So it's coming out independently into that, exactly the same signal coming out of the mic pre. There's no two mic pre's, it's only one mic pre. So this is the CL1B.
We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it.
Warm.
We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose, and it's because we were purchased. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose, and it's because we were purchased. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it. And now I'm walking in purpose, and it's because we were purchased. We didn't deserve it, but he saw we were worth it.
Pretty damn identical. What's interesting is a very dynamic singer with a lot of tonality. So you can be fooled into believing, because of the way he performs in different sections of the song, that there's tonality differences. So why don't we do this? Let's take just that first phrase and go between the two. We're going to start off with the CL1B, and then we'll move to the warm.
We didn't deserve it. 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 We didn't deserve it.
It's pretty identical on the beginning of the deserve. It's slightly more compressed, or could it just be more gain coming on the tube tech? Knowing that now, when we go to our next singer, I'm going to push the warm just a little bit harder, just a bit harder, to see if I can get it even closer. It's pretty darn close. It's just on that deserve. Have a listen again. I know I've told you what to listen for, but see if you can hear what I'm hearing. We'll do CL1B to the warm. It's the only thing really where I'm just hearing a little bit more compression grabbing the front of that deserved.
We didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve it. It's subtle, but it's there. And that's what we're here to do, to see if we can match these and make these pretty darn identical. You know, bearing in mind, if we can, this is, I think, $4,000, and this is like $1,000. It's a quarter of the price. So if we can get this to sound like this, obviously it's a pretty awesome thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to, the warm is set up and calibrated exactly on 0, God bless it. So now I'm actually going to mess with it. This is Jason's suggestion, and actually make it wrong. So it's now going to read like the tube tech. We're doing everything we can here to get it as exact as possible. Now, all of the settings are pretty, it's a tough one. They're almost identical. Now, the warm is detented, so it makes recalling absolutely perfect. Okay. Close enough for jazz. I'll tweak it any way I want, but now we've set up the metering, so actually the warm is slightly wrong, so it physically looks like the tube tech. Let's see if everything is going to work out perfectly.
As if you can't take what's on my mind, and you couldn't handle hopeless cry.
Okay, with the warm now offset pretty close. It's reading about a dB more compression, half a dB to a dB. Now I heard that choking, so that was a little strong there. Bring this down a little bit on both. The release is set to the fastest. I'm going to slow the attack down a little bit so it's not grabbing it quite so hard. Tweaky tweak.
All those words that I was taught to do, and when the world is far too much to take, and I'm ashamed to seek your. 'Cause 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 'cause
I like where that's at. That sounds to me like just the right amount of compression for this song and for her performance.
I'm not alone here in this fight. You love
Not grabbing it too much. It's also not, you know, doing that choky kind of thing on the attack. Wonderful work, wonderful. We might need you again in a minute. We're just going to have a quick listen here. Thanks ever so much.
Sure.
So if anything, the warm might have been grabbing it ever so slightly more. So we could do another pass. I'm loving this, by the way. This is like my favorite thing to do these kinds of things. So we might be able to just kind of adjust it a little bit. So first of all, I'll tell you what I'm doing, and then I'll play it so with no speaking. So here we go.
'Cause you love my brokenness. Oh, you hold me close through all.
So it was interesting, when we recorded Jordan, it felt like there was a little bit more compression going on with the CL-1B. And yet here, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more compression going on with the warm.
'Cause you love my brokenness. Oh, you hold me close through all.
I might want to speed up the attack just a little bit on the warm to match it, and then bring up the output ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. You know, like anything, any two compressors, probably not going to be identical, but definitely both performing really, really well.
'Cause you love my brokenness.
That was the warm. Here's the CL-1B.
'Cause you love my brokenness.
Slightly less compressed.
'Cause you love my brokenness.
Back to the CL-1B.
'Cause you love my brokenness.
So let's speed up the attack. So it's grabbing it slightly quicker. And then let's just bring up the output ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. I still think it's going to be a little bit more compressed. So maybe I bring down the threshold ever so slightly as well on the warm. Threshold down ever so slightly. That's one click. And speed up the attack a little bit, like another click. And then maybe just the tiniest bit more gain. Okay. See if that sounds pretty identical now.
But you love my brokenness. Oh, you hold me close through all of it. Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. 'Cause you love my brokenness.
I brought the threshold down just a little bit, so slightly less compression, slightly less grabbing it as early. Now I want to bring the gain down, because now it's not grabbing it as quickly, there's more signal going through, so now I'm bringing the gain down on the warm.
When the much to take, and I'm ashamed to seek your face. You love my brokenness. You hold me close through all of it. Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. You love my brokenness.
Threshold down a little bit more.
You love my brokenness.
Gain down.
You hold me close through all of it. Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. You love my brokenness. Oh, you love my
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much. I think you've given us everything we need. I really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you, Monica. Little tweaking, you know, the VU meters are slightly different. It does seem like there is a little bit more gain on the warm, just a little bit. But like Jason said, it's probably been a little bit of time since this tube tech has been calibrated. But at the end of the day, slightly different settings is one thing. The most important thing, and I know you all agree with this, is how do they sound? Is the CL1B.
Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. You love my brokenness.
We're going to go to the warm 1B here and have a listen, and then we'll compare without me talking.
Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. You love my brokenness. Your heart breaks along with mine. Your heart breaks along with mine. Your heart breaks along with mine. Your heart breaks along with mine.
Pretty darn accurate. All right, I want to do one more thing just for Snitch and Schniggles.
Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this.
So I've taken a screenshot of the WA, and now what I'm going to do is do a screenshot of the CL1B. So let's just clean this out. There you go. Here's the CL1B.
Your heart breaks along with mine. I'm not alone here in this fight. You love my brokenness.
So here is our comparison. So there's a little bit more toughness in this, in these mids here. It's pretty darn similar. There is a little bit more 250, 300, a bit more fullness. So a little bit more low mids in the vocal on Annika's voice than there is on the CL1B. It's fairly similar-ish in the mid-range, kind of the low mids from like 6 to 1K. There might be ever so slightly more. I mean, these, you know, from left to right, if this was a left and right speakers, we'd be thinking they're identical, but they're slightly different. There's a bit more detail in the mid of the 2 to 3K. That seems to be slightly dipped. And I mean, the characteristics are pretty similar. I think the only thing is there's probably a little bit more 5K. The two differences are a little tiny bit more 5K in the CL1B and a little less mids going on in that sort of 2 to 3, 400 area. It's a little bit fuller there. So you could split hairs. I mean, for a lot of people, that's a subtle difference. For some people, that might be quite a big difference. But they read pretty similarly. They definitely have very similar characteristics. If I was doing this against an 1176, it would be like, not subtle differences like that. It would be a huge difference in frequency response. And again, I could probably spend a bit more time tweaking, thinking about, you know, what the compression was like, kind of hitting it a little bit differently. I mean, make up your own mind. We're going to give you these multi-tracks to download. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go and find a song and we're going to put it across the vocal and have a listen to the compression on the vocal. The one last thing to do is to listen to Annika's voice with the track changing out each of the vocals. So bringing it up to 3 dB. Let's have a listen now.
But you love my brokenness. Oh, you hold me close through all. But you love my brokenness. Oh, you hold me close through all of it.
I suppose my initial gut reaction is you can hear a little bit more of that warmth. I think it sounds ever so slightly warmer because there's a little tiny bit more low mids and a little tiny bit less high mids. Nothing to write home about, like that a dB boost or cut in either direction. But that does give it the appearance of being warmer, doesn't it? Being, because it's got a little bit more thickness and slightly less high mids. But knowing this, if I cranked up the gain, who knows what the relationship would be? Maybe the gain would push the mids ever so slightly. I'd be intrigued. You know, do your own tests. We really wanted to do this. We wanted to do a shootout comparison. We wanted to see how close it was. In the real world, this is super close. I guarantee if we had two tube techs here, a 5-year difference in age, they would probably have similar differences. I've had a CL1B, had one for years. And I guarantee that it's not going to be identical to a brand new one or vice versa. So pretty darn close, pretty darn close. Let's try mixing with one. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got bootstraps. And Jordan is a fantastic singer. He's got a kind of, he's going to hate me for saying this, but a Ray LaMontagne thing going on. We sort of breeze through it. He gets compared to Ray LaMontagne all the time. So sorry about that, Jordan, but a wonderful, wonderful singer. This is a live vocal. This is a live performance, the whole band. So there's guitar bleeding into it. But I thought of all the things to showcase it, this would be a great track to use because I want something that's super organic. And here we are, we're talking about expensive tube equipment. So, hey, why the heck not? I'm going to just see if I can gain match the two. There's being sent from two inserts, 27 and 29. So let's just see if we can gain match them.
But it spins on our recorder. And before they all come over, my oh my, shook as the wheel spun, lost from everyone. They don't know where we come from.
So what's interesting is we just went from Annika's voice and we adjusted gain and threshold and got something fairly, fairly similar. Here, we started off with her settings, but we've cranked up the gain a little bit to rematch it. And that's the difference in kind of frequency responses between the singers. So maybe that's the subtle difference in that like slight, very slight 5K less we're getting on her vocal, but a little tiny bit more low mids. You know, his voice at 45. maybe it needed a little bit more gain to compensate. Who the heck knows, but these are subtle differences. I was just talking to Jason, the engineer here, the full-time engineer, and also Mike Arango, who was my old engineer, came in, and we were listening to stuff off camera, and all of us agreed that the differences between, say, two tube techs would be just as wide, if not wider. Subtle, because these are subtle, but you put two 1176s up against each other and push them, they're not going to read identical phase. You couldn't just flip the polarity on them and cancel each other out. There would always be subtle differences. So one could argue that the differences are truly subtle. I would love other people to try, obviously with vintage or new CL-1B, see what results you get. I'd be amazed if anybody has anything that's really dramatically different. All right, so that little section that we just did, let's do it again now we've game matched it a little closer.
45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. And before they all come over, my oh my.
So I'm pulling down the warm 1B down ever so slightly and the gain down ever so slightly, so there should be a little less compression going on. See how that works.
45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. And before they all come over, my oh my. Shook his fire, lost from everyone. They don't know where we come from, where we come from.
So going between the two there, pretty darn close. Let's solo them. Here is the CL-1B, and then we'll go to the warm. And obviously what I'm going to do is I'm then going to play them back to back without me talking, and we'll just show you on the screen and see what you can hear. So this is not with the track, this is just soloed. Like I say, tons of guitar bleed.
45 is slower when it spins on our recorder.
Now the 1B, the WA.
45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. And before they all come over, 45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. 45 is slower when it spins on our recorder.
All right, let's listen to it in the track.
45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. 45 is slower when it spins on our recorder. And before.
Pretty darn close. I feel like it's still a little bit louder. Yeah, it's a tough one. They're really close. It maybe we're just getting hit a little bit harder on the warm now, just a little bit. So I'm going to go down one more, and maybe just one click less on the compression. This is a lot of fun. I'm going to go to a different section of the song, so you're going to have that to listen to.
45 is slower with grooves that skip over every word you heard before. My oh my, 'cause our heart blood bound by wonder love, still don't know where we come from, where we come from.
I've got to say this. I think if this unit here had different knobs on it and had some really fancy boutique name on it, you know where I'm going on this, and was like, you know, handmade and $5,000 and based on the Opto compressor tube idea of the Tube Tech, we'd all be going, oh my God, this is so amazing. It's so close. It's so incredible. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I've tried a lot of warm stuff up and I like a lot of their stuff. And I've been very, very vocal in being supportive of their 1176s because they're affordable and they get people into what I believe is the best compressor ever made, the most versatile compressor, the 1176. Now, the CL-1B is the compressor kind of to the mixing stars. Jason Joshua said, you know, when we interviewed him, that when he worked at Larrabee, every single mixing engineer that came in, doesn't matter what the genre they did, used the Tube Tech CL-1B. If this was green, pink, whatever, boutique-y, and in a rack, and they were choosing between the two, there is nothing there dramatically different which would make somebody choose one over the other, except for subtle tastes. I had Mike Arango come in, and he couldn't read which one was which. He was standing too far away, and I played between the two. And when I told him which one was the warm, he thought it was the CL-1B because to him it sounded slightly warmer. You know, and when we read with Annika's voice on it, it seemed to have ever so slightly more low mids, just a bit, not quite so much 5K, just a little bit less. And those two very, very subtle things make it feel a little bit warmer. CL-1B, absolute classic. The preferred mixing compressor of so many incredible mixers. Is this a ridiculously good value for money compressor, which comes as close as you could ever imagine anybody to do? I don't know. You make up your mind. We all know how we feel about it in here. I want you to make up your mind. Download all of these audio samples. Go to whichever store is close to you, obviously Sweetwater. See if you can get a demo. Download and listen. I'm super, super impressed. I knew this was going to be special. I knew when we visited Bryce and heard that they were coming up with this, that they were really, really trying their best to do this. There's a lot of people that make quote unquote clones, and some companies get close to the sound and some people just have lookalikes. And across ranges of some companies, some of their products are really close and other ones are not so close. This for warm, thus far, is pretty darn close. It's probably the one that's gonna, I don't know, I'm tempting fate. This could be a really big selling compressor. You download the multi-tracks, you find out for yourself. You listen, you saw what we did, you saw how we recorded it, you saw how we mixed it. We'll do one more sound sample because this one, of course, has acoustic guitar bleed into it. And you might say to me, but Warren, I want to hear like what it's like on a purely recorded vocal. Well, we'll do that for you. So stay tuned. We're going to come over now. So what we've done here, as our last but no means least, is we've got a track by Andy Palmer. This vocal has no bleed. It was overdubbed. He did sing live in the room, but we did an additional vocal. I think it was recorded on a U47 with a Neve. There's probably a bit of compression going in, but it's fairly dynamic. So let's have a listen. So here is the CL-1B.
Fancy young man walking down the street. Said there's a woman I love to meet. So fancy young man walking down the street. Said there's a woman I love to meet. So penny for your thoughts. You look like my type.
There's a lot of P going on there. There's no EQ on this, so.
Penny for your thoughts.
Yep. So the CL-1B and the warm both react the same way on that.
I love to meet. So penny for your thoughts. You look like my type. She say, hold out your wallet.
It's the CL-1B.
Hold out.
You hear the air on that. Here's the warm.
Hold out your.
Identical. Near as darn it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little EQ. I had Soothe 2 on the other one. Remember, this is identical. They're getting one source being split. It's high pass.
Hold out your wallet.
There you go.
Penny for your thoughts. You look like my type.
And the warm.
Penny for your thoughts. You look like my type. She say, hold out your wallet.
All right, so I'm going to print And we'll go between the two. And we'll have a listen.
Fancy young man walking down the street. Said there's a woman I love to meet. Penny for your thoughts, you look like my type. She said, hold out your wallet, boy, you'll do just fine.
Same settings as Jordan's vocal.
Moon's coming up now, they're holding hands. Stars are coming up now, looking like a little romance. Bought wine and roses just for the show. She said, don't rush me, honey, let's take it slow. They walk onto his pad, he's got quite the place. Says, what about you, babe? What holds your faith? And she turns to him with a big sly grin, saying, I'm no doctor, son, but I rake it in. Now she got one hand around the man and one on the gun. Said, so long, boy, oh, we've had some fun, but you told me so.
So I like that. I think let's just kind of go between the two in solo, first of all.
Fancy young man walking down the street. Fancy young man walking down the street.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is so tiny. We've reduced the dynamic range from the original, subtly, about 3 dB. I just thought to myself, let's do the second half of this with it being used more as a limiter. So that's what it is at about 3 or 4 to 1. Now, let's go a little nuts. Yeah, let's go and make this far more aggressive.
So romance later, your money tonight. What you want, you
10 to 1.
What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. Said you treat me right, so romance later, your money.
So it's a lot more aggressive. Let's speed up the attack a little bit so it grabs it a little quicker. Let's increase the threshold quite dramatically. See if I can get it close between the two.
Said you treat me right, so romance later, your money tonight. What you want, she gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever scammed a man. Said, so sorry, honey, but I just can't live. So
Pushing it harder, see what it can do.
took all his gold. Said thanks for the rose, but I like green. And she hit the road. Oh, she hit the road. Now she hit the road. Oh, she hit the road. Road, road, road. And she said, I like green.
So I'm going to see how much I can match them now. So I think we're really pushing it hard, and this will give us a much better idea of what they really can do. On that softer compression, pretty darn close.
Said you treat me right, so romance later, your money tonight. What you want, you gonna get from
I'm
you.
increasing the attack, so it's a little faster setting.
What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she gonna get from you. What she wants, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever scammed a man. Said, so sorry, honey, but I just can't live so bland. And took all his gold, said thanks for the rose, but I like green. And she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. She said, I like green, and she hit the road.
Okay, now that we've abused it, I think we're seeing a couple more subtle differences. So what I'm seeing here, well, what I'm hearing here, is the release time feels like it's slightly faster on the TubeTech. Like at the fastest setting, it feels like I'm slowing the release down to get them pretty equal. Let's see. Try it again.
She hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road.
There's definitely a more aggressive transient on the warm when them both set at the fastest attack. My gut is that the attack time on the TubeTech is just a bit faster. Let's go to the fastest setting on both. Let's go to the fastest release setting on both. Let's see what we get.
She hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road.
Okay, this is the most we've abused it. As you could hear and see, 10, 15 dB worth of gain reduction. 10 to 1, most aggressive, basically limiting as much as you can with a tube compressor. Fastest attack and release time. So we are hitting it as hard as we possibly can. So obviously on manual, threshold, yeah, it's grabbing it pretty tough. The only real differences I can see is I feel like the fastest release time might be slightly faster on the CO-1B, and the attack time might be slightly faster. I'm seeing and hearing a bit more of a transient on the warm, and it seems to be holding on to it slightly longer on the release. So, but remember, this is the most aggressive settings. This is on 10 to 1 and fastest attack and release and pretty, 15 dB worth of gain reduction. So here's the CO-1B.
She hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. She hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. Ah, she hit the road. I like green, and she hit the road. She hit the road. Ah, 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 she hit the road.
Now that we're pushing it really, really hard, that is the only real place I can hear a difference. But again, to reiterate, ratios on 10 to 1. So we're on as far as the limit we can go with this. We have the fastest attack and release time that is allowed per the controls, and it feels like the release is slightly faster on the TubeTech and the attack is slightly faster as well. It's allowing a little tiny bit more transient to come through on the warm, and it is grabbing it for a nanosecond longer, so you can just see it and hear it just grabbing on a little bit more. But in that gentle compression, or that compression 3 to 4 to 1 where we had it, almost identical. Pretty hard to tell. So there you go. We pushed it to its extreme. We found the biggest of the differences. Now, it comes down to this. Is that difference? If I'm using a WA-1B, I'm not using it as a limiter. Why would I? I've got plenty of other things that do limit. I'm using it as a soft compressor that adds so much personality to it. So bottom line is here, that's the starkest of all of the differences. And if that's the starkest, I don't know, make up your own mind. Download all the files, see what you think. It's just not as, how would you put it? It's just not as grabby as the Tube Tech. But a lot of modern stuff has a little bit of that fast transient coming through. People like that. And you're only going to get that when you use it super, super aggressively. Otherwise, you're going to get incredibly similar results to the CO1B. So my summation, pretty darn good. Like I said, if this was a boutique looking, handmade, expensive unit, we wouldn't be talking about it in quite the same terms as something that's so relatively inexpensive. But because it's inexpensive, we look at it differently. It's interesting, isn't it? I feel like this is an incredible value for money unit. And for a lot of people that want tube compression at an affordable price, a quarter of the price, I think it is. I mean, or close to. Pretty miraculous. Thank you ever so much for letting us be one of the first people to try it out. Download all the multi-tracks. Let me know what you think. And thanks ever so much for watching. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, goodbye.